Hi, everybody. How you doing? It's Matt Grimm here with the King and Weber podcast. I'm here today with our very special guest, Ward 10 Councilor for the City of Kitchener, Mrs. Stephanie Stretch. Stephanie, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
How are you today? It's great to have you here.
I'm good. The sun is shining on this March day.
Spring is beginning to sprung, it
feeling
seems.
hopeful and in crazy times.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Being a mom, being a counselor,
Being a mom, being a counselor,
being a wife.
having, political landscapes changing quickly. And
The news is busier than I can remember at any time. I forgot what it's like having Trump in office.
right. Yeah. It does take some adjusting.
It certainly does, because every day things are changing and it impacts us both nationally, provincially, but also locally.
Mm-hmm. No, he really has mastered the art of media in a way we've never known or experienced before. So it's just stuff coming at us all the time. You're not sure where to look, what to pay attention to, and just saturates.
And then you get to the point where you forget what he said 2 weeks ago.
And does it matter? You're not sure even. So
Is this
hard to
relevant?
know.
Will this matter in a week?
Exactly.
It's tough to know. It's always tough to know.
Yeah.
Now, today, there are so many things. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thanks.
There's so many things I want to talk about. It's going to be your job to try to keep me on task of the things you want to talk
well,
about.
good luck. We'll try.
Because quite honestly, you will struggle to meet many people who care as much about municipal politics as I do. I truly think they're the most important politics of all the branches of government in this country. I think municipal is the most important because I truly believe it impacts our lives more than any other.
It does. Yeah.
At the same time, I always question what is the role of municipal government, and what is the job of our city councilors, of our bureaucracy, our bureaucrats, and what is not our job. So finding that balance, and that's something I'd like to talk about a bit today too. But first, I sort of wanted to establish some common ground between the two of us. We don't know each other that well. We've met a few times in public at different events, and you've campaigned in my neighborhood. For the record, we both live in Ward 10, and I've met you a few times. You have a personality that makes people feel very comfortable. I don't know you very well, like I said, but I feel like I do. and it's in our few interactions, you've always made me feel comfortable, and as though we have a lot of common ground, even though perhaps we might disagree on a few issues. But I think at our core, where we can both agree for sure to start, is we both love this city.
Absolutely.
You're a native of this city.
I am.
Did you always live in Ward 10?
No, I grew up in Ward 1.
Okay, help me out. And for the listeners, where's Ward 1?
Krug Street Plaza area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, right. There's a church there called St. James Rosemount.
Yep.
Back on there on Chelsea. If anyone's
Grew up
from the
on
area.
Chelsea.
Yeah.
Okay, shout out to Chelsea.
Yeah, I went to Smithson School, then Stanley Park, then Grand River.
Okay.
And then I went really far, all the way to the University of Guelph.
It's a hell of a commute.
I know.
Did you live in res, or did you commute every day?
Oh, I lived in res and then lived in a house, 748. Woo. I lived with 6 girls in university.
I always laugh when I think about Guelph. Guelph is only a 15-minute drive away from Kitchener, but it might as well be on the other side of Toronto.
Totally. Well, I never go there now. I like going there. It's not that I dislike it.
It's a great city. I don't have any issues.
Totally, yeah.
But
it's like a whole other.
It's a completely different world.
Yeah.
And the two parts just, for some reason, we just don't get together.
Yeah.
On a lot of issues. I make jokes. I have this long running joke that I make about the city of understanding the Tri-Cities. So for the outsider, I didn't grow up here. I grew up in a small town, Strathroy.
Okay.
And I always say, the way I explain Kitchener, Waterloo, the Tri-Cities, Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge to everybody is, okay, it's like a family.
Yeah.
And Kitchener is Big Brother.
Oh, okay.
Kitchener's Big Brother. He's big, he's brawny, he likes to work with his hands, he's very diligent and caring. He's the oldest brother, and he's been around the longest, but he's more of a hands-on kind of guy.
Yep.
Waterloo's his little brother, okay? He's more academic, and he loves to just poke his big brother all the time and just say, I'm smarter than you, I'm smarter than you, I'm smarter than you. And these two, they just fight all the time like cats and dogs. And the only thing that these two can agree about is that they hate their little brother, Cambridge.
I haven't heard this analogy before.
Well, I think it's original. I think I made it up. But they can't stand their little brother Cambridge. They feel like he's always whining and
Cambridge.
complaining. And I'm not saying you feel this way. I'm just
Yeah.
saying this is my experience of living in this town.
Yep.
And then people ask me, well, how does Guelph fit into that situation? I said, it's simple. Guelph is like the cousin who grew up on the same street as you, but your parents don't talk anymore.
And
so
you're not sure
don't-
why.
And you're not sure why. And nobody ever explained it. That's where Guelph fits in this equation.
I like that. I've used the analogy where Kitchener feels like the mother people come back to when they need help. They, like they're the mother. They want to take care and make sure everyone's okay. And then you have Waterloo, who's like the dad who has a little more like a little more serious approach to things, and kind of like, no, step up. And I'm not sure how Cambridge fits into that. Maybe more like a cousin, or I wouldn't want to say Cambridge is like the child of Kitchener-Waterloo.
Well, it only came around in the 1960s.
Well, that's not what my parents would say. My mom's from Galt.
Okay.
From Galt, she says, not Cambridge.
Well, this is it.
She's
I
from
always
Galt.
say that Cambridge has a personality disorder as well.
Well,
They don't know who they are. Sometimes they think they're Galt. Sometimes they think they're Hespler. Sometimes they think they're Preston.
Yeah.
They rarely think they're Cambridge.
Yeah, so my mom grew up in Galt, and so we were there every Sunday for dinner at my grandma and grandpa's. And
Beautiful.
now my cousin lives in that house still, so
Okay. So these are the things I used to try to express the differences in towns. But our focus mostly today will be on the Waterloo region and Kitchener in particular, being that you're the Ward 10 councilor. But it's funny, you did go to Guelph, and yeah, these things all relate in some ways. I was thinking about this before you came. I wanted to talk about a few things. One was, as I said, I didn't grow up here. I came here via Toronto. I'd been living in Toronto with my wife, and I was working downtown, and my wife was also at a job in Toronto. We just got tired of that big city living, and we decided in 2007, 2008 to move to Kitchener. Her parents lived here.
okay.
And so we were making this move back to this city. And I can still remember when we bought our house in the downtown ward, Ward 10, the School of Pharmacy was just being built. It was being built around that time, and things seemed exciting in downtown Kitchener, where it was like, I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew that it was going to start at the corner of King and Victoria. Like that was where things were going to start from. So the School of Pharmacy gets built. By the way, at this time, everybody's telling me I'm crazy for moving to downtown Kitchener. I'm being like, everyone's like looking at me like I got three heads.
Yep.
But shortly after, McMaster joins the School of Pharmacy, and they say we're going to have a School of Optometry. Then Cadan decides to reinvigorate the tannery building. They totally renovate the building. Next thing you know, we have Google moving in there. And by 2010, it was the most happening place in the whole Tri-Cities. And I can remember saying to Poppy, that's my wife's name, we should take a picture every single day. Because the landscape was changing so quickly. There was so much change going on everywhere. There was another building going up, or one being torn down, one being renovated. Everybody wanted to be downtown. It was being revitalized. The municipality itself, the city of Kitchener, under Mayor then Mayor Carl Zare, but Barry was part of it, Jeff Lawrence, and a couple of other guys.
yeah.
Huge $100 million revitalization of the downtown. It was happening, and it was such an exciting time to live in downtown Kitchener. I don't know when you moved to the city or to the downtown.
Yeah, to the downtown. So I finished university in 06, probably 2010.
So around
Into
that
the
time when it
downtown?
was just really clicking and things were changing, there were still problems, and there were still homeless people.
Yeah,
But like,
absolutely.
I can remember vividly in that period, yes, we had a homeless population, but you knew their names. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, oh, that's Wally. There's Duff over there. Yeah, you
Wally
remember
and
Wally.
Duff.
Yeah, see?
Yeah, of course.
We knew who they were. Like, we had a homeless population, but we knew who they were.
And they weren't homeless.
Well, they were,
Street people.
They were challenged.
Lived close to the streets, but
they had mental health challenges.
absolutely.
I think is a fair
But-
way of putting it, right?
But also they were housed. I mean, that's the point.
They had a place to sleep. Yes. But the bottom line was just, we knew who they were. There was just an exciting feeling in the city. I go downtown last weekend. I was there on Friday night. I still like to go downtown, but I'm down on King Street, right by City Hall, and it's like Night of the Living Dead. There's literally zombies walking all over the streets. Well, not even walking. They just, they're there. They're so tweaked out on drugs. And I'm asking myself, what has happened? The Shoppers Drug Mart I go to all the time, they can't even keep the back door open anymore.
I was just there yesterday, yeah.
And the crazy part is, okay, that's at night. I go the next day on Saturday morning, I walk the same streets, and it's just as strange, because now those people are awake, but they're belligerent, and they're yelling, and they're screaming, and not necessarily at anyone in particular, but I'm asking myself, what has happened in the last 5-10 years where suddenly it's not a place where, it's not a place where even I feel 100% safe. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I live very close to City Hall in downtown. I have 2 kids. There's definitely been lots of changes, and if we want to talk about more recently, we really see issues around drugs and drug use. It's
100%.
Huge. It's huge. And this isn't news, and it's not surprising. We've had this on the radar, especially at the not-for-profit kind of level, people working with people living close to the streets. They've been sounding the alarm on this for a long time about the drugs and how poisoned they are and how unwell people. So you'll see a level of people being unwell that, I hate using this word, but unprecedented. Just
it
people,
isn't. Yeah.
people haven't seen this sort of. It's almost like people using a poison drug supply. It's like almost like they go feral. They have to relearn, like to get better. They're having to relearn basic things like using washrooms, how to basically take care of themselves, and so we're not dealing with a drug issue like we saw in the 80s. We're not even the 90s. This is something completely different. It's making people so unwell that some of the established systems or, interventions that we could place and, kind of help launch people out into wellness, they're just not working. There needs to be so many more levels of intervention to help.
I agree. And I just feel like we're not doing anything to enforce anything at this point, and it's making things worse, not better.
Yeah, I can probably say we agree on policing taking an approach that I'm not comfortable with is with a downtown resident. You're right. I myself have called 911 and not gotten through. I've called the non-emergency number and been put on hold for 40 minutes easily. And so it's frustrating. 100%. Like, what else are we supposed to do? And I say that, and I even say that to, police representation when we're able to meet. So the new chief has put in a different way of collecting data. So I live downtown, and especially in the summer, so I live really close to the encampment, close downtown. So it's pretty normal to have people walking the streets at night or someone yell. Like, that wouldn't be like, what is going on? It's kind of like, okay, like, you want to be aware, but it's not shocking. So when the cars go through, like someone breaks in and looks for change or something, instead of waiting on phone for 40 minutes to report it, I just stopped reporting it.
Well, this is what I would say. I can't even imagine the level of unreported crime going on. I have a friend who works at a local retail establishment on Park Street. I will not name the name, but he says he gets robbed every day. He gets robbed every day, yeah. And there's nothing that they're able to do about it.
Yeah.
So, and I'm friends with, I'm buddies with Brian Larkin, our former chief, now deputy commissioner. And I know Chief Larkin at the time had said, you can't arrest your way out of this problem. Yeah. However, I think you can enforce things a little bit more than what we're doing right now. We need the assistance of the court system as well. I don't feel I'm not sure that our police feel as though they have the help of the courts.
I have heard that.
And we also don't have the help of the hospitals. I think from a municipal perspective, the only thing we can do is police and enforce. We can't change. And overall, I think the biggest problem is we need to change the mental health. We need to rewrite the Mental Health Act.
Yeah, I'm
Top
with
to
you.
bottom.
I'm with you. People are not receiving. Different countries do it differently, but there's so much to learn, and I would totally agree that people who need help are not getting the help they need. They're getting arrested and then going into a court system, and then nothing following through, and so they're coming back, and so there's interventions, but they're not the right ones.
And they're not effective.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, they're just not effective. It's like we know people that work with people suffering from mental health issues as well as addictions, and work is coordinated and done to make sure that these people get the help they need. They get everything set up, and then the hospital system releases them because they say they're fine. 48 hours later, and
Yeah.
it's not working. So I just firmly believe that life is equal parts carrot and stick. And for the last 7 or 8 years in the addictions community and the mental health community, but especially addictions, which is a mental illness in my opinion, and it is diagnosed as such,
Yep.
it's been 100% carrot. We're just giving out carrots and carrots and carrots and carrots. People are not getting better. It's not working. And we need to try something new. But it starts at the top. I don't think this is a municipal issue. The only thing we can do is keep our our streets
safe.
Thank you. Thank
got
you
it?
very much, Stephanie. For your kids and for my kids and for you and for my wife and for me. So we can all go out and walk the streets and go to Victoria Park and go downtown and feel safe.
Yep.
That's the only thing we can do at the municipal level.
Can I talk about that a little bit more?
Sure.
Sure. Okay. So, the city has been noticing the same problems, and we have the CTS site closing the end of March. We also have a homeless shelter, the old Schwaben Club on King Street. That's also closing the end of March. And then we have the Heart Hub opening, which there are some, there is some hope and some care being able to be offered, different resources being offered, but still some care. So we are expecting things to get worse just because these supports are closing. And we too, in the city staff, councilors, we're seeing the same things downtown. We're hearing from businesses loud and clear. We are losing the capacity to be able to deal with the issues downtown. And so the BIA is also working with the city to try to build in some more things. So the city, in the more recent budget, we approved 2 more bylaw officers. So this program I'm really excited about. So what they are doing is they're taking bylaw officers, still in uniform, but like a hoodie with a logo, and they're well resourced with food, a little bit of money for coffee, and their whole approach, instead of calling the police, because often in the downtown core you know the people, like you were saying, like everyone knew Wally, everyone knew Duff. Well, there are similar people around downtown that just haven't been there as long. So there are people to be known there, and so it's a different option. So if you're in the downtown core, you can call bylaw, and they will come out and send the 4 workers. So we're trying to keep those staff really consistent so that they can also build relationships. And so, there's a point, someone to know them, say, you don't look well today. Like, let's try to figure out what direction we can point you in to get the help you need. So more at a one at a time approach. And I mean, we can't solve the city of Kitchener. We can't solve the drug crisis. We can't solve policing issues. These are huge things. So we're just having to figure out, how do we deal with this effectively?
Yeah, because I really don't believe that it is the role of municipal government to do much more than that. That's why I think, in looking at this, and I think about this a lot. I live close to the encampment just like you do. Mm-hmm. I see this literally every single day. It impacts my life. But I also understand addiction better than most. I'm lucky enough to be sober for 15 years.
Oh,
I
congrats.
haven't had a drink in 15 years, but I do understand addiction better than the average bear. And so when I see these people, I want them to get help. It's not that I want them to be punished. I want them to get the help that they need. I just don't think that what we're doing right now is going to get them there. And I think we need to change things. And so I've been racking my brain for years on this. It's like, what do we do? Well, the truth is we have to rewrite the Mental Health Act because a lot of these people need to be institutionalized temporarily
Or long term.
or long term. And you're not doing these people any favors by letting them live rough, as we want to call it, or however you want to call it. It is not safe to live in an encampment. It's not safe for the people who live there. It's not safe for the security guards who have to maintain the place. It's not safe for the police that have to go there afterwards. It's not sanitary. These are big problem issues. And so I know we're seeing some work being done in the not-for-profit side, but really what we really need to do is take a top-down approach.
I mean, that would help. I mean, having come from the not-for-profit side, like, talk about exhaustion, and it's, you're dealing with the problem systematically that you really have no influence on. So you're trying to catch and work, and the work is just getting harder, and it's getting more of it, and you're getting less funding. And
I look at what Mancini's doing on the corner there, okay, at the corner of King and Victoria. And at first, I was a little bit upset, but just because we're growing the problem, it felt like at first, until I got to really see a full blueprint of what they're doing. And that was when it finally hit me. Joe came to my Rotary Club and gave a full talk on this new building they're putting right at the corner of King and Victoria.
It's 87 Victoria, I think. Yeah. No, 97.
But what it really is it's a de facto psychiatric hospital.
Yeah, I mean, they're working magic and miracles with nothing.
They're trying to do everything they can. Don't get me wrong. But when you look at it, they're going to have wards. They're going to have bedrooms, which is essentially ward care, which you would find in a psychiatric hospital. They're going to have on-site physicians and or PSWs, support workers, what have you. There'll be group therapy. There will be and there'll be a place to eat. Well, that sounds like a psychiatric hospital.
I mean, it will act like that for some people, absolutely. I guess the hope would be that it wouldn't be a really long-term solution. I mean, for some people, it might be, but the hope is to go from there. That really supportive kind of, living rough to some place, and then go from there to graduate, maybe like a house of friendship situation where you're in an apartment building and there's some staff, but it's not as hands-on. You don't have a doctor on staff. You're able to kind of progress. But really, that's up to the individual,
There's the problem. There has to be a path to upward mobility, but there has to be some sort of enforcement as well. There has to be a little bit of stick to go along with that carrot. I guess that's my argument. But Joe Mancini and
Steph,
they're doing this work because it's not being done, in my opinion, at the federal level. Because we close these hospitals. Let's be clear, there were some terrible things that were done in the 1960s and 1970s inside psychiatric institutions in this country as well as in the United States and probably around the world.
Yeah, even before that,
and earlier.
Yeah.
It was only discovered, I think, at those points or discussed. But the solution was to shut them down basically entirely, which is not the answer.
Retrospect.
Well, but now we're at a point where they're all closed and we need them again.
100%. I don't disagree.
So we're just trying to get the message out there to our local, federal members of parliament and provincial parliament.
Yeah.
It's time to rewrite the Mental Health Act. Someone needs to pick up this political football.
Yeah, and the working center, and I get they get a bad rap sometimes because there's this perception that they're enabling. You're helping people, but really it's a moral issue. If they were able to be helped somewhere else, they would. So really what they're doing is they're trying to catch as many people and give them another chance.
Yeah.
And really it's up to the individual, but I think,
But
having a place.
It shouldn't always be up to the individual. I think that's the problem.
Yeah, and
When people are becoming belligerent, when they're a danger to other people, we need to do more.
Okay,
And
I
when
see
it's
what you're saying
impacting
there.
people's businesses. For example, I don't even have to tell my kids not to go downtown. They just don't go. As my son told me,
How old are your kids?
well, one's 20 and one's 16.
Okay.
But the 16-year-old, I don't have to tell him, to be careful in downtown Kitchener. He just won't go. That breaks my heart. But as he was telling me just recently, the last time he went there, he dropped into the TD Bank down on King Street, where where a man was exposing himself and pleasuring himself in the middle of a bank.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to turn people off.
It should. Yeah, definitely. I hear what you're saying, and I think that's probably a good instinct for your kids to stay
But we
away
don't
from.
want it to be like that. You don't either.
I don't either. Also, when I was growing up, when I was a teenager, we never went downtown. It was scary too. We would come down to go to the theater, up the big staircase, like we'd park, come down the alley, up, go downtown for the movies, and then out we would go. It's not a place we would hang out either. And I think we saw some really good momentum pre-pandemic, where we were starting to see people using the downtown again in a really great way.
Like I said, it was really
It was,
revitalized.
yeah, absolutely. And really since the pandemic, like the whole world changed, right? There's less people in office buildings. We're seeing a whole new drug crisis. So there's so many different factors, but I can say it's absolutely top of mind. With the mayor and our CIO, it's something we meet weekly about. We're trying to figure out what we can do short-term, medium-term, long-term. We're also seeing other cities really struggling. Hamilton, London. These are places we're, looking at and going.
I'm reading about it as far as Sarnia and Windsor. It's every city, every municipality in Ontario, perhaps in the country. Things have got to get better.
Yeah. So I was talking earlier about the police system changing the way they're collecting data. And so if I can say anything, is please keep reporting. Even though you're frustrated and you have to wait on the phone, and just please keep reporting, because they're using the data now in a different way. So the more calls they're getting from areas, then they're sending patrols out to those areas. So if you want your neighborhood to get the attention it deserves, you have to report, or it won't be registered as an issue. So now more than ever, I'm encouraging people to please call
You
it
heard
in.
it here.
Please call it.
Keep reporting any instances of disturbance in your neighborhood.
So you can call like the non-emergency number. You can call 911. You can also report online, which is a little bit faster than waiting on the phone. If you call non-emergency for a long time, you can get it reported. But I know it's frustrating. I personally have experienced the frustration, and but I don't give up. Don't be like me and just say, forget it. Please report.
For the record, I've met Chief Kroll several times. I think he's a great person.
Yeah.
And street crime, what's happening at the street level, is just one of 1,000 things that the WRPS is doing. And so it's important, but
There's a change.
there's
It's a change.
so many things that they have to, I want full props to all the cops out there and the police service here in this city.
They work so hard. It's not.
Nobody calls the police on their best day. Nobody's having an amazing
So
day.
true.
Says, you know what I think I'll do? I think I'll call the police just to say hi.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, in my experience working with officers, it's all been really good. It's just, it's overwhelming. There's so many calls, so many different problems.
Now, speaking of calls, I'm going to change the topic on us here. Speaking of calls, something that's not Kitchener-centric, but part of the Waterloo region. A big petition is going around right now, as you've probably heard, with regards to speed cameras on Lobzinger Line in Woolwich Township.
Okay, I can say I'm not super familiar with the Lobzinger Line speed camera issue. Understand speed cameras within the city and what we've decided, but in the townships, less so, for sure.
There has been a push throughout Waterloo region to add more speed enforcement cameras over the last year.
Yes, that I am aware of.
Me too. I have spoken about this online as well as publicly several times.
Ooh, phone. It
Okay.
is. Okay, you were saying speed cameras.
To get back what we were talking about, there's been a movement afoot to try and implement more speed enforcement cameras in the region of Waterloo. Some people, including yours truly, might consider this to be a bit of a tax grab. It's a bit of a way to get some extra tax money from people. Not everybody agrees with me. Some people think this is very important and it's going to solve an issue which, in my opinion, doesn't exist. The city of Kitchener, for the record, did not vote in favor of implementing lots of speed
You're
cameras.
right. Yes.
But Waterloo did and Woolwich did.
Everyone did. Yeah.
The
Everyone else.
one in Woolwich that's getting all this attention this week is one particularly on Lobzinger Line as you enter into St. Clements.
Okay.
All right?
I know what you mean.
So they've implemented a speed camera in an area where it goes from an 80 to a 40, which is excessive because you're on a highway more or less, and then suddenly you get into St. Clements and you're expected to boom to get right down to 40, and it's just hard for people to do. They're upset about this. They know they're getting tickets. I think there was 7,000 tickets issued in the month of January.
Yep.
So people are upset.
Yeah, the city of Kitchener saw this coming. Yes.
I think I saw it coming too.
Yeah.
But there's been push for it in Waterloo and in Cambridge and in the townships, and now we're seeing. Well, the one in I think it's in Wilmot Township. There's another one that's been chopped down or vandalized at least 4 times.
Yeah.
But now we're seeing it in Woolwich as well, and I bring it up because it's like, yes, it's a revenue center, but what is the purpose of this? And secondly, how many people are you going to upset? How many people do you have to hire to answer the phone just to deal with angry
Yeah, absolutely.
people?
And I know some people would say, well, don't speed, problem solved. But the problem is these roads are designed to go quickly on.
Yeah.
And so, when it was around the council table, and I don't mean to speak for all of Kitchener or all of council, but when it was around our table, we were saying you would hear from many councillors saying they feel like this is too punitive because the road is designed differently. The road right now is designed for people to move this quickly. When it was built, it was a smaller town. We wanted people to move quickly. So it's not fair to punitively catch people when they're speeding. We want people to slow down, but we need to do that through road design. And so, also like it or not, you'll see more street parking or things so the road will become more narrow, which will then naturally cause people to slow down. It's intuitive, when you have less space to slow down. So, of course we want streets to be safer. Of course we want people to slow down, but this way of doing it, I think we're hearing like it's just feeling more punitive.
It doesn't feel fair, especially the fact that it's enforced 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That does have some people upset for sure.
And one of my thoughts around the table was, well, they would say, okay, well, if you call in and complain about your ticket, you'll get a warning. I can't remember exactly the procedure, how it would go. But we know people who call in. They're likely regulars at calling in. There's a lot of, it doesn't matter. Like you could be elderly, you could be just new and getting your license, you could be new to the country. There's going to be a lot of people also hit who are not going to call in, we're just going to continue to collect from. And because we're not noticing it being a problem, it's not a problem. But that's not fair.
Meanwhile,
either.
you're building up animosity amongst your citizens, right? And I know when I knocked on doors when I was campaigning, in the last election, a lot of people in neighborhoods, when you ask them what their biggest issue is, it is speeding. So you do hear that from local residents. They'll say speeding is an issue.
100%.
But I don't think any of them were calling for speed cameras.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what they were looking for. They're looking for some form of enforcement, something to
deter
create traffic calming. Like I'm thinking about one neighborhood in particular, Beechwood Forest.
I don't know that neighborhood well.
Stoke Drive is the one I'm thinking of.
Okay.
And it runs right through Beechwood Forest, and it can be very fast. I'm also thinking of, Zeller Drive. Another one where people can get up to 60 in a residential neighborhood relatively easily. And you get people complaining in those areas. I don't think the desire though from them was to put a speed camera in. A speed bump, maybe some flashing lights, but not necessarily an enforcement camera, because those do feel punitive. And when we look at the statistics, in the last decade, there was only ever one incident, I believe is what I read in the paper. There was only ever one incident at any school in a city of at the time of over 500,000.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the data, you're right. We want to make, especially around schools, especially around retirement homes, we want to make these places absolutely safe. Like we're all in agreement on.
Nobody argues that.
100%. And, we want speeders to slow down, absolutely. But statistically, if you look at the numbers of where accidents are happening, where people are, in car crashes that are fatal or, highly significant, they're not generally in these areas. There are other highlight areas that you would want to, address maybe in a much more strict manner. Yeah. So, yeah.
This is what I call a solution in search of a problem. We've got this great solution. Nothing was broken.
Yeah. I mean, not everyone would agree. I get it. They just say slow down, but yeah,
7,000 tickets in 1 month. Boy, that sounds like a profit center. If that's the case.
Yeah. It definitely does sound like that. I think, I can say sitting around Kitchener City Council table, I am, generally really pleased with the direction the city has taken on trying to figure out how to enforce speed and how to slow people down in a different way. But we're not a township either. So, yeah, we have different roads, different situations.
So what's it like being a counselor? Is it what you envisioned?
No, it's not like what I envisioned. So I ran in 2022 and lost. Well, actually, I can go back further. I ran in 2018 in Ward 1, where I grew up, and threw my hat in the ring, kind of like, we'll see what I learn. What's going to happen? I was up against an incumbent, Scott Davey, and generally had a really good experience. Worked hard campaigning, learned a lot about myself. People say, did you learn a lot about the community? I did, but I learned a lot about myself in the process. And lost significantly, which was okay. But
that's how you learn. You have to do that in order to learn.
I give credit to some of my athletic background. Like you win some, you lose some, and you move on. So I had some practice losing. And as far as life advice goes, like get good at losing, because you'll take more risks. It won't be, you don't get better from your wins if you take your athletic experience. You always learn more. And so really thankful for the experience. And then didn't think I would ever run again. And then Sarah Marsh decided that she wasn't going to run again in Ward 10. And so decided, okay, there's no incumbent. This is the moment. I put my name forward, and then early on, and then watched as different people signed up. And I remember Ashlyn Clancy signing up, and I was like, who is Ashlyn? I've never met her. Does anyone know it? No one knew who she was. And
I knew.
Everyone knows who she is now, yes.
Yeah, I'm only laughing. I'm laughing because I thought the same thing. And I was thinking about running for Ward 10 council because I heard Sarah wasn't going to run. I'm like, well, maybe I should run for Ward 10. Maybe I should give it a shot. And then I get a knock on my door, and it's Ashlyn. And Ashlyn was asking me to sign her nomination paper.
You're like, oh.
I'm like, oh, geez, because Ashlyn we're close neighbors. We live close by. And she was asking me to sign. I'm like, oh, well, that's why I ran. I'm like, well, if there's good candidates running at this level, I'll run for regional, because I knew Jeff Lawrence wasn't going to be running. So
it was the time, yeah.
Again, that was like, thinking I'm the only one thinking that. Well, no, there's about 11 of us who had the same idea.
Yeah. So campaigned, worked really hard, was really hoping for a win, thought like, this is it. And then lost by about 100 votes.
Oh.
It did sting. It stung for sure.
Yeah.
And then I knew I needed a career shift, so I shifted from working like in the not-for-profit social sector and started working in wealth management. So I wrote some tests and got qualified and started working with TD in Guelph. not very long before then there was a provincial by-election. Ashton put her name in and won. And so then the seat became available. And so then about a year ago was appointed Ward 10 city councilor. But it felt like it felt like it was like a bad boyfriend coming back, like that broke up with me. It's like, we broke up and now you want me back?
I'm not sure.
I know. And
Not
I
sure
really
if I'm ready.
Well, I really had turned the page. Like I lost, I moved on. I know I needed to change, like different direction. Had done a bunch of studying and learning and trying to figure out this was commuting to Guelph, commuting to Guelph. Yeah, and so it was a big change, but I was nervous too because I didn't know what I was getting into. In that, politics, you hear, oh, it's so toxic, it's awful. Why would anyone want to do that? Especially working in finance, people are like, why would you do that for so little money? But decided to do it, and I'm so thankful I did because it is a really good working culture right now at the city on council. I am, really happy to say my colleagues have been even generous with, me asking questions, kind of coming in halfway through. How does this work? I feel like sometimes I'm the annoying little, that cartoon, you have the big bulldog and you have the little chihuahua kind of bouncing back and forth. Sometimes I feel like that. Like I'm like, oh, look at this. Like, oh, how does this work? And I'm so excited. And yeah, so they've been really patient and generous with me kind of hopping on board. And I've just been really impressed. The level of competency. Also, it's so nice to see that in leadership. So it's not like I'm joining and going like, oh.
There's a pretty good crew down there.
There is, yeah.
I don't know the inside staff. I know some of the actual counselors.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, even the counselors, there's a good mix too of counselors who've been there for a while, so really understand the processes and the formalities, because that is a big learning curve too.
How about the reading?
Yeah, the reading. I thought that was going to be really like a really big challenge, but it's not that bad. You kind of learn, or at least I've learned, where to really focus, where to like, okay, yep. And so the more you read, the more it kind of
For the
repeats
people
itself.
listening,
The reports are huge.
once a week you get a stack of papers, right?
Yes. Well, we don't actually get the papers anymore. It's all electronic.
It's all become electronic. Mm-hmm. And how many pages is it usually?
Well, it totally depends, but he's like 130 on a
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a light week.
Yeah. Yeah, but like I said, you end up knowing where the meat of it, where you want to pay attention is, but and then once you've read one or two, you get the rhythm and where they're
Okay.
writing and where you
So you're adjusting. The learning curve is
I'm a year and a little bit in, and I feel much more grounded, and I'm able to predict things a little better. And the first little while just kind of felt like, what?
yeah, you just got to get your bearings. Everybody has to do that.
Absolutely. So yeah, no, I'm really, really happy, and my life has become hyperly local. So I live not far from City Hall. My husband works at the library, the main branch, also not very far. My kids go to Suddaby. We're really close. And then I love going into the office. It's one of my favorite parts of the job is I get an office. I was
Beautiful.
used to working out of a backpack and like having it's like an extra room for my house. I work out of City Hall all the time.
My wife works from home. She does a great job. But me, I love having my own separate office space.
Yeah, I love it.
But I do believe in keeping my world small. My life revolves around about 4 square kilometers, pretty much for everything I do. And that's even on the outside boundaries. Most of it's within 2 kilometers. I like to walk as much as I can.
Yeah, me too.
And that was why when I moved here, that was my sort of philosophy. Was like, if you're going to live in a city, live in the city. I know that makes me the exception to the rule, and you, for the record.
Yeah, growing up, I lived, like I said, out by Krug Street Plaza in the suburbs.
People would call that downtown now.
Yeah, truly, yeah, they would. But at the time, especially, it was very suburban, and I always wanted to live on a small town, like a hobby farm. Like I was thinking Ayr, Baden. These are places I imagined my life kind of going, and so I'm completely shocked that I live downtown and love it. It's great. We have a backyard, like we can have a backyard campfire, and then you can hear the ion like ding. So it's like the best of both worlds right now.
In the old parts of the city, we have very good sized lots as well, which are nice. I grew up, like I said, in Strathroy, small town. I had a large property. We had a regular house, but on a 1 acre. And all I remember doing as a kid was yard work. I just felt like I was perpetually doing yard work. So when I moved, I wanted to live urban. My best friend grew up he grew up above the sub shop that his parents owned downtown. So I always thought this urban living, hey, you don't have to cut grass. You don't have to shovel. This is more appealing to me.
Yeah.
So when we moved here, I wanted to live urbanly. So we moved right down into the core of the city. Plus, I had commuted since grade 9 because we didn't have a Catholic school in Strathroy when I was growing up. So I went to high school in London. We got bussed into London every day to Regina Mundi College. And then after that, I went to Western. And again, I was commuting from Strathroy to London. So I'd done enough commuting in my life. I was like, I want to try and live this local life. And I adore it. I much prefer this core compact living. But again, you and I are the exceptions to that rule. It's my experience that the vast majority of our fellow citizens in this city or this region want to live in the suburbs. And evidence of that can be found all over this region.
Yeah, well, I mean,
and there's some evidence I wanted to talk about. There's a couple of things. One, there's more people wanting to come to our city than ever. We're growing to 1 million, and we're going faster than we anticipated. We're approaching 700,000 in the region if we haven't already met that.
Well, it depends who you ask, what numbers you get. But
somewhere around 700,000. We don't have enough places for people to live. And this week at City Council, a major development got turned down for 2 massive towers out near Sports World. What can you tell me about that? I know that you voted it, full disclosure, I know you voted it in favor of this building. And Brandon Flewelling is a good buddy of mine, who is the representative for the builders from GSP. But what do you know about this project, and what do you think happened there?
Yeah, I think I know the ward councillor, Jason Deneau, worked with the developer and the constituents quite a bit on it. I know the developer moved, so sitting at the council horseshoe, you see what different developers can do. So they start with this proposal, and then you meet with the residents, and you see what kind of middle ground you can get. And so this developer made significant changes to try to.
Yeah, they dropped about 10 floors off of it, didn't it?
Yeah, there's a bunch of different things that happened, and they offered over 20 units of affordable housing. So for me, that was a sticking point, and that was a real reason. That's 20 units that I just couldn't let go of, despite different council members feeling differently. So what happened? I think you saw council try an approach where they're rejecting the development, and what this means is that the developer can appeal and go to the OLT. And so the Ontario...
So they think it's going to go through. They just don't want to be seen as voting in favor of it going through?
They want to see what the OLT is going to do. So a bunch of the councillors have predicted, this we're going to lose. But the community was willing to take that risk and voiced that and said, we're willing to take the chance at OLT.
But is this NIMBYism?
Yes.
In your opinion?
Yes.
Okay. It seems like it to me too.
Yeah, I think it's changed. That whole area of Kitchener is going to change significantly. And with anything, the beginnings of these changes, you don't get it. You don't see the vision. And I get it too. The parking right now, trying to imagine not everyone having a parking space living there right now is like, how would you move around the city? There's no access. But, in 10, 20 years from now, it's going to look a lot different. And so I think those changes, those gaps in understanding, like I live here now and I want it to look this way, is more than fair. Like you can think that.
Yeah, you can think that, but you also got to remember there was water slides there 15 years ago. Okay, like
Yeah.
it's going to change. That was a water park. That's why it's called Sports World Drive in the first place. And now that's a shopping center. Now there's more residential housing there than ever before, and it's a commuting neighborhood. We need dense buildings like this everywhere, especially like my whole point is to when I talk to people is we're growing to 1 million, whether you want it or not.
Yeah. Same.
Where are you going to put them?
Yeah, and for me as a downtown counselor, everyone's trying to put affordable housing downtown. But I really want to see that spread out across Kitchener. That's a good model where, you know, we need to have a mix of housing available in different areas of the town. So for me, that absolutely was a real highlight. And there's no mechanism right now for the city to demand a developer to build with affordable units. We can't, right now, there is no mechanism. When we're trying to, once Growing Together has been fully established, then hopefully there will be in around major transit areas, then we'll have some capacity to make developers build some affordable units within their buildings. But right now, there's no legal standpoint. There's no way we can hold developers to build affordable units.
Well, when it comes
So
to
when they offer
affordability,
us-
this goes back to my question, though. My earlier question, I said what I would come back to is, what is the role of municipal government? Is it the role of municipal government to provide affordable housing?
Well, if no one else is doing it.
That doesn't mean it's your job.
Yeah, but the thing is with municipal government, with like anything that trickles down, like it's your constituents. It's that this is where people's faces, names, lives, everything becomes real. So you're gonna do what you can to help people, even though it might not be your jurisdiction. And there is risk in that, but there's also humanity in that, you know?
I guess what I think about because I give this a lot of thought as well, is as municipalities, clean streets, safe streets are the priority. Clean drinking water, these are priorities. The more housing that we can get approved in general, the more we increase the supply. Economics is supply and demand. Right now, demand way outweighs supply. If we can get more housing online, the more housing we can get online in general, the more affordable our city becomes.
No, I agree with you. Supply and demand, like we need more housing.
If you really want to get the cost of housing down, build more.
Build 100%. Economics 101. Like we know these things. I guess my thought is like, are we so far behind with housing that we just cannot catch up to the demand? So
well, that is part of the problem right now, and that has to do with the fact that 1 million people came here legally, another 1 million came here to Canada in general, not to the region, but
okay.
1 million people came to Canada legally. Another 1 million came using student visas over the last 5-6 years. Nobody was prepared for that great of a number. And it's swelled the population in every city, but especially, you know, it's impacting Kitchener more than it's impacting Thunder Bay.
Right, I hear
Right?
you. Conestoga College being a big factor in that.
A way of using student visas. That's a completely separate issue that I'd love to talk about as well. But just purely in terms of housing, I remember reading an article in the Record about 6 months to a year ago talking about this massive influx of people over. We saw a 20% increase in the Waterloo region over the course of 2 years. 60,000 people. 60,000 people showed up, and somebody said, "Well, I thought it would be more." One of these new Canadians thought it would be we would be more welcoming. And I remember reading the article, and I'm thinking, "Well, nobody told us you were coming. We didn't get the memo that, by the way, your whole city is going to change its outlook. It's going to look completely different." Because there's a whole ton of people that are coming. Nobody let us know. We might have been able to be more welcoming, and we might have had a bit more housing. But now, yeah, like you said, we're so far behind. I just think the more that we can, as a council, the more that you guys can do to get more housing approved faster, the better.
No, I agree with you. I think supply and demand, is definitely a factor. I have been curious and wondering about, because we're so far behind, what can we do for that, I don't want to say the missing middle. I just mean affordability, that middle piece. So can it be a condo? Yes. Can it be a renting apartment building? Yes. But the price points where people are able to get in and live somewhere, I think because we're so far behind, we're having to meet the needs
By subsidizing.
because we can't build fast enough to be able to see the price drop and then have people
Well,
come in. So
Again, it also comes down to development fees too, though. A lot of the downtown core was built with special incentives that are no longer there.
yeah, I mean that's a whole complex issue. I mean development fees when you build, that's how we are able to do things like parks where we are able to have money, so we keep property taxes as low as we can so that we can
But you kill affordability if you get those development charges too high.
totally, and then you see a stop in people building housing. So
It was
but we have no other mechanism right now as a city to
it's only approvals.
right, I see
And
what
I
you're saying.
get it because I understand what you're saying in the fact that I can come find Stephanie Stretch. Stephanie, you're my Ward 10 councilor. I can't afford gas. I can't afford hydro. I can't afford groceries. What are you doing about it? It's not your job. This does not fall under your jurisdiction, but you want to make change because you're an elected official, right?
You want to make change, you want to help people, and you want to figure out what tools do we have, what could we possibly do. And so I am really proud of Kitchener trying to figure out, with the tools we have, what can we make, what can we do to help. But we are running out of the capacity and the tools to be able to help with this.
And I can speak as a concerned taxpayer. We don't want taxes rising anymore. The level of inflation and taxes locally has just been crazy. At the regional level, much more so than anything we're seeing at the municipal level in this city of Kitchener specifically. But you talk about those development fees. Another topic that just came up this week, Waterloo has officially announced they're going to open up their last suburbs within their city boundaries. So that's up in the Conservation Drive area. Now, the big thing that got buried in those headlines was that for single detached homes in that neighborhood, the proposed development fee per lot will be $66,000.
I couldn't even afford just the development fees.
66,000. How can you speak affordability with one side of your mouth and then say we're going to, that doesn't include the cost of the lot, that doesn't include HST, that doesn't include carrying costs or the cost of build. We're just saying to the builders, if you want to build a house on this lot,
Okay.
you have to give us $66,000. And then it has to be affordable too. But
Yeah. I hear you. So, I mean, we need more housing across the board. So I'm happy to see movement and
Yeah.
space open up. But you're not wrong. Absolutely.
we have to find ways to limit the role of government, and it's hard. And that's why I always say to people, I think we need people in power that are willing to make tough decisions because we're going broke. And we're being asked to do more with a dollar than we've ever had to before. And that means making tough choices. It means in my household, sometimes, it's like, no, we're not having steak, we're having hamburger. You know what I mean? Or we're not having meat at all, what have you. We've got to make tough choices like that. And we need to hear the same thing from our local elected officials. And I don't know that we necessarily are at all levels. And so I can be a little critical.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. I can be a little critical about some,
that's all right.
some local politicians because it's my money. It's your money.
Same
And-
tax base, same taxpayer.
Yeah. So that's why I said we have to in my opinion, what I'd love to see is this focus on fundamentals, clean streets, safe streets, clean drinking water, affordable energy. I just was looking at one of the things I'm very grateful for in this city is we have our own utility. We still own our own gas utility.
It's huge. Yeah.
And we're able to maintain our own cost structure because of that. Like that is just some foresight that only one other municipality, I think, in the whole province has.
Yeah, it's really like having gone through my first budget and learning. We have just the city of Kitchener had some really great thinkers previously, councils that I wasn't on, that anyone at the council table wasn't on, to be able to set us up well. And so it's really great to be able to join in on some of that long-term thinking. And so, yeah, you're right. That was some seriously amazing forethought.
Not only can we profit as a municipality from this utility, which we don't do to excess by any means, but we can also control what we're charging.
To
an extent. I mean, it's a commodity. Don't get me wrong. It's still a commodity, and we're still at the, we still have to pay. We still have to pay for what it costs. Excuse me. I'm just struggling.
Yeah,
to find the
absolutely.
word.
And we try our best. So when, the costs are low, we try to buy more, store, and then be able to serve our customers in a fair way, for sure.
At the same time, I'm looking at my bill this week, and it was a rough month. Like, it was cold. For those who don't live in the region, it was cold.
Yeah.
And I couldn't help but think, in a country that experiences such extreme temperatures as Canada, in particular, we're here in Ontario where we got to about minus 20 last month on several occasions, how the government, not municipal, but the federal government could place not one, but two taxes on energy on the same bill. $100 on my bill last month was tax. Blew me away. I'm like thinking, talk about essential services. Access to cheap energy is going to be crucial, in my opinion, in the next 20 years. I don't know about your house, but are people plugging in more things or less things?
Definitely more things. So I live in a very old house.
Me too.
And so it's like radiator heating. We still have original windows. Yeah. So
You got some work to do.
we got so much work to do, but I can tell you, there's no time soon we're going to be able to touch those windows. It's just so expensive. We can't, you got to live with what you have. And so we're trying to.
So you're turning up the heat more because more heat.
So it's so expensive in the winter.
Agreed. Yeah. And we're not plugging in less things. Trust me, in these century homes that we own, like there's one plug in a room sometimes, one outlet. And we're now at a point where, we're all plugging in more things. We're using more energy than ever. We've got to find ways, rather than punishing, in my opinion, rather than punishing ourselves as citizens, we have to find ways to make energy more affordable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, as citizens or as a municipal government, especially Kitchener, I feel like we're set up well to do that part. But these are some big systems that, we need to work together at changing. It's, not something, when my kids are like, turn off the lights, save the world. I'm like, yeah, we do need to do those things. You're right. But it rests so heavy on our shoulders when there's some big systematic things that could change, that could make a huge difference.
Yeah, I don't think this is the role of municipal government, to be clear. In fact, that's part of my challenges is I know you sat on the environmental committee, right?
I still do, yeah.
Still do. So I think, again, we can all agree, we want clean water, we want clean air.
Right. Like having a clean environment and taking care of it is not just a Green Party issue. It's in every party's platform. It's a high priority, top of mind. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, none of us want to go back to the 1970s where Lake Erie is, a cesspool.
You're right. Yeah.
And the Cleveland River catches on fire. That's what happens when there's zero regulation. At the same time, we're at a point now where we're almost over-regulated. And we've made an enemy of the natural gas and oil companies. And I don't think that that's necessarily fair either.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily fair either. You're right. We're using their services. We're benefiting.
We all need them.
We all need them right now. I think focusing on figuring out how to transition. I mean, a lot of energy and oil companies are also doing work trying to figure out how to transition. So yeah, absolutely. I guess I generally agree. I think, in a capitalist place, everyone's trying to make a buck as best they can. And I think not every company and not every place you're seeing goodwill.
Not always.
Yeah.
But that's why regulation is required at some level. There should never be zero regulation.
Right.
It just has to be contained to an extent, if that makes any sense. I'm thinking about it though, and I'm thinking, okay, because of AI, we're going to need more power than ever. AI burns tons of energy to the point where companies like Google are looking at building their own nuclear reactors. That's how much power it requires to run these systems. People love cryptocurrency. Kids think crypto is the coolest. Burns tons of energy to create crypto coins. We're going to require more power, not less. So we need to, I think we need to really start looking at our environmental strategies. And I was thinking about this. I know you strongly believe in the environment or in taking care of the environment. I came up with this idea. I was just thinking about it. I'm just going to throw it out there.
Okay.
There's still 2 billion people in the world who are relying on coal, dung, and wood to heat and feed their families. 2 billion. If we can find a way to get them a clean and safe supply of natural gas, it would alter the carbon the carbon levels of the entire globe. And we have that resource here. Now, if we extracted that, it would make our country so wealthy. And we could provide it at a very, very affordable rate to places in the developing world, as well as our own country. Using the Norwegian model, we could put a small portion of that away into a sovereign fund. Okay, so yes, we are, rather than creating some carbon tax, we're going to create a sovereign fund where we're getting 1% of all royalties, a 1% royalty off of every liter of oil or natural gas that's coming out of the earth. We use that money, that sovereign fund we use to build more nuclear infrastructure. Because nuclear is the cleanest source of all and the most powerful. Also the most expensive to build, though.
Right now, yeah.
So we build up the developing world using our own natural resources while we build our own nuclear infrastructure. It's just an idea that I was thinking about because we don't do that as a nation. Norway has done this very successfully.
Yeah, Norway, we use Norway a lot as an example, and I think we have a lot to learn and figure out, except Norway is just much smaller.
Oh, definitely.
Like
the
there's so many,
population is
it doesn't
tiny.
just like translate like, oh, this is how
No.
it works. But
culturally, we can't do a lot of the things that they did.
yeah, absolutely.
But from a natural resources perspective, we could always create a system where we get a royalty.
Yes.
We deserve a little piece of the pie. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I fear, I fear that things have moved along in a way that, even that idea is not as hopeful as it might seem.
What do you mean?
I don't know if we have enough time, and I don't want to. I am generally very hopeful and very positive. I just mean a giant shift like that's a great idea, but how long is that going to take? How the political will to do it. We're just
political will is the challenge, right?
and we're just in this time where there's so many things coming at us all over the place, right? And so, I want to remain hopeful and see a way through. Just right now, everything looks so murky.
Well, here in Canada, right now, uncertainty is all we have. Right?
Yeah.
We don't have a leader. We don't know who the next leader is going to be. We don't know if that leader is even going to call an election because technically they can wait till October.
They could, yeah.
Right? At which point we don't even know who would get elected. So there's all...
And everything's changing hourly, it feels like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the Trump effect.
That's a Trump effect. And I mean, and we're, just where we are positioned in Canada right now in our own politics, right? So, yeah, you're right.
Right now, politically, governmentally, we're weak. And I wish we were stronger. We had a lot of sunny days in this country that we didn't take advantage of and save for a rainy day. And it concerns me.
Yeah, even generationally, so I still count as a millennial. I just squeak in there.
Oh, yeah?
I squeak in.
Oh, you're missing out. Us Gen Xers.
And the change, from going from, not having the internet, not having a cell phone, the amount of change that we will see is going to be significant, and we're going to have to make hard choices politically, but we're also going to have to make hard choices in our homes and in our lives, how we're going to change and how we're going to use energy differently, what we're going to prioritize our money. This kind of consumerism of like just being able to, expect to be able to buy things. I mean, my grandparents lived in Galt. They have a small wartime house, and they had they rented out a room to, as they were starting and trying to figure it out, and that was the norm. But now the idea of that is almost preposterous to people.
Oh, standard of living has increased. We're living better than princesses and princes did.
100%.
And that's just the average family is, we're sitting in here with LED
it's
lighting.
Freezing outside.
It's freezing outside. We've got beautiful heat. We've got the internet. We've got phones.
That's going to be a big shift, because you're going to taste differently, you're going to feel differently, those are like systems. But then it brings it back to like, that's the municipal level. And so that's where people go to talk about what they need and what they want. And so, when we're sitting at that horseshoe and people are coming and talking to us about clearly provincial issues or clearly federal issues, there is a helpless feeling for sure, because we can't do much and we're trying to figure out what we can possibly do.
I disagree. That's where I think you need to stand to. That's not us.
So I hear you.
Go talk to Ashlyn.
Yeah. Well, and some counselors would absolutely agree with you, but I see it as practice. It's just not something we're yet good at. So if it's taking you to come to city council and it's intimidating, it feels like going to court, right? It's an intimidating room. You have this whole structure that's not like, it's very formal. And so if this is the practice you need to experience something like that, and then for us to say, we hear you, we agree, we disagree, but you need to take this to, this, if that's a step that gets them pointed in the right direction, great. Can we probably do that more efficiently? Yes, I think we could work on that. But I think that's good. I think that's good practice. And if you want something, you want to advocate, you need to learn where and how to do that. And so people come to the municipal level first, because they're like, hey, I know Mac, he lives down the street. Hey, I know Steph, we went to high school together, or whatever it is, right? And so you're
more approachable than the
100%. Yeah. And so if that's what it takes to, build people up to take the next level, I'm all for it. And so I don't
want to discourage people from coming down to City Hall. Let's be clear.
But
I'm with you.
That's the tension.
But what they got to learn is like, hey, that's just not our job.
Yeah, exactly. And then to accept that fact and not go, well, that's just passing the buck, because we get that a lot too. And you don't want to sound like you're passing the buck, but it's like asking someone if you can borrow a hammer in their toolkit and you just don't have one. You're like, I don't have that tool. I can't help you do that.
We can't help you with that.
Yeah, here's my shoe. You could try that, right? But what you really need is a hammer.
Yeah.
So,
and guess what? They sell hammers
have it over there.
right over here. Go see Michael Harris Jr., Ashlyn Clancy.
Yes.
Michael Morris.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing that, I want to set people's expectations up clearly. So if they're coming to us, whether it's rent eviction, we're going to do what we can, but truly that's a provincial thing. Affair. So if they see no movement provincially, they'll often come back municipally. And, we're trying to figure out what to do. But I don't want to also have people stop advocating at that provincial level and then focus municipally, because it is the wrong tool. You're going to see, much bigger results if you're able to advocate at the right level. That being said, from a municipality, we're working with whoever people elect in power. So we don't get to choose. And that's actually one of my strengths, and what I really love about the municipal level is, party politics. We're just dealing with whoever gets voted in.
Yeah, and you don't have to choose a side, and I like that too.
Yeah, you're just trying to solve the problems.
I'm largely considered to be conservative these days. Most people would call me that. But I like to make it clear that I grew up in a house that supported the Liberal Party and we're very active in the Liberal Party my whole life. And I have voted for all three major political parties at different times in my life. And I like to think of myself as an independent. Every issue's different. Now, I am for more limited government at this stage because, like you said, I know people are hurting and I know that they want help, but they're coming to the wrong place.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree. I see that for sure. But
And I
like I
think-
said, I try to take that and then, look at the tools we have. What possibly can we do? And then try to point in the right direction and count it as practice. You count it as like, it means something, but okay, now take this and run.
That sounds great to me because I just don't think that I don't believe housing's an issue for municipal government
Oh, okay. I was
to
like,
solve.
but it definitely
It's
isn't.
definitely an issue. I don't think it belongs to the federal to the municipal government. Your job is to get housing approved as quickly as possible with the lowest development fees possible so we can get more houses built. That's my feeling. I also don't think it's the job of municipalities to feed their people. We're right next door to the hamper program right here as we speak. And I get a front row seat to see who's using this. I know that the region of Waterloo, not city of Kitchener, they were requested $2 million for this program. And I know that the House of Friendship got $500,000 towards housing through the city of Kitchener. And that begs the question to me again, what's the role of government? Is it the government's job to give taxpayers money to charities?
I think if that's what the taxpayers want,
How do you know?
they
Who gets to choose?
Yeah, I mean, who gets to choose? I think it's our job, given the tools we have, to do what we can with them. Jack of all trades, Jill of all trades. We're trying to do what we can. And like I said earlier, we are truly running out of the ability to do anything more.
And I just feel like more people are expecting more of you, and I think I think that's wrong. So when the food bank comes to the region and they say we'd like $2 million to be part of the permanent budget for the region of Waterloo, I can't help but think you need better fundraisers. That's what I really think. Because it's not the role of government to take my money to give to charities because they're not fundraising. I'm not saying they're not important. I love the food bank. I give money to the food bank. But I also love tiny home takeout and I love a better tent city. They don't get money from the government. Who got to choose that? Who gets to say?
Yeah, I that is a hard political decision. I see what you're saying, but yeah, I don't. It's tough as a municipal politician, I can say, when you know the names and the faces, right? You're not removed. I mean, you are. There is lots of privilege involved in some ways. But yeah, you know the names and faces. You see the people, and so it's closer to your home and to your heart. And so I can have empathy with wanting to help, but also it's hard to say I don't have what you're looking for.
I know John Neufeld. I think he's a great guy. John, you are a fantastic person.
You're a good guy, John.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's the region's job to give money or the city to give money to those charities. The theory being, if I have more of my own dollars in my pocket and my tax dollars aren't going to the municipality, then I have more money to give to the charities that I choose to.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think like generally I can agree with, that level of thinking. I think in practice, yeah, I can just have empathy with wanting to be all things to help, right? So
we all want to help, right?
yeah, and so you think like, how can we possibly manipulate this so that we can help too? Yeah, I hear that too, but I don't generally disagree with what you're
get
saying.
the demands probably more than most as a municipality. but we all want to solve things. When people come to us with a problem, we're like, well, you want to come up with a solution.
And you want to feel like you really tried everything you possibly could to help, right? And so you can answer honestly, and you can say, you can tell the truth, basically, right?
Sometimes in business, sometimes in parenting, and in life in general, the answer is not to answer.
Right.
Sometimes
Or
I have
not
to say
yet,
to my
or-
son, you're going to have to figure this out. This one's on you. And that helps other people grow. It makes them stronger. It makes them better. It's hard, though. It's hard to do. Don't get me wrong. I understand.
It's hard to do. I think, too, it's worth pointing out, you were saying you were talking about addictions earlier. So I've lost two brothers to addictions.
Two?
Yeah. One, I lost one
I'm so
brother
sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I lost one brother in the end of November.
This year.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I'm sorry.
Thanks. Yeah, me too. And it was mental health issues and addictions issues. And I think, you're not separate from the issues. And so it's political, but it's also personal for many people, especially when we're seeing, hard times for everyone. So when we talk about drug issues, when you talk about mental health, when you talk about people living rough, often it's someone close to you that these issues are affecting. So there's, for me, there's a real authentic want to do what's possible and to try to make that dollar stretch as far as it can in a helping manner. But at some point you just, it's up to the person, it's up to, the many, but you want to make an environment, a community where there's, as many, like, I imagine those like hooks from the stage that come out and like scoop you up. I hope that there's as many of those chances as possible for people. Does that mean that we're going to solve the issue completely? No, it's not able, but as a politician and as like a community member, I want to see as many ways.
I'm so sorry to hear about that, about your losses. That's painful to lose not one but two brothers to addiction. The hardest thing to understand for all of us is that it's not our fault. We want to fix it, right? We want to fix it. I always say to people, I say, I sincerely doubt that when my mother was at church, she was praying that someday I would grow up and become an alcoholic. I don't think that was her wish, but she had no control over it. She had no say over it. It was my personal demon that I had to face. And there's nothing that anybody could have said that would have made me not go through that. The only thing that saved me, and it doesn't mean that it always works, is that I was left to my own vices to solve it. I had to seek help on my own. I didn't fix it on my own, but I had to go and seek that help on my own. I had to be desperate enough for it, as a drowning man seizes a life preserver, to get it. And we need more of that. Sometimes I think when we try to solve these things by putting those temporary solutions in place, we're perpetuating the issue.
Yeah, I get that argument too. And, I don't want to say that that's not always the case. I think sometimes it can enable. But, as someone who's lost someone, people dearly close, there is this desperation, like just another day, another week, so that maybe that rock bottom will happen and that will be the moment they choose differently or take action or change a pattern. And so that's honestly a decision I don't want to make for someone. But I think creating as many opportunities for someone to make that decision, absolutely.
It's hard.
It's hard.
It's hard. I want to help, believe me, anybody that suffers from addiction, I want you to get the help that you need. I want to be able to help you, but you got to want it. This is the whole, we have to want it. And you got to hope that people make it here in time. Cause like you said, the game's changed.
The game has changed.
The game has changed. It was about 100 years ago. It was almost basically 100 years ago, where North America was covered in drunks.
You're right. Yeah. It
Our
was
whole
totally
country
normal.
was
Yeah.
covered in drunks. Women and children were getting beaten by their drunken fathers and left penniless because they spent it all at the pub after work. And women had gathered together and coalesced to form prohibition societies because they could not take this anymore.
They couldn't survive it.
They could not stand it for another day. And their only idea, their only thing that they could come up with was complete abstinence. And that was 100 years ago. Today, here we sit, it's 100 years later. And like I said, we have zombies walking the streets. And it's not, we're no longer, I don't think we have the same issues with alcohol. We certainly have them. They certainly exist. Trust me. But it's cross addiction. And these new drugs, the fentanyl and the trank, and these things are killers.
Absolutely.
These things are Russian roulette. So this is like every time somebody picks up fentanyl, I can't even understand, as someone even who understands addiction, I still can't understand how you would put something in your system knowing that there's a 50-50 shot. You are rolling the dice every time. But the chances of people hitting their bottom and being able to make it into a program of recovery or making it into some sort of help, they're lessening. I get it. Like, because it's so strong.
It's so strong. Yeah, absolutely. And so the problem's a different problem in it, in its entirely. Sorry, I had an idea, but then I forgot when you were talking.
I went on too long, I guess.
No,
My
it
bad.
was about alcoholism, addiction,
Prohibition.
Well,
we're trying to figure out how to solve this drug problem. The women 100 years ago, they said, abstinence,
I thought
shut
of
it
it.
down.
Okay,
Go
so
ahead.
So studies a lot of data, and I haven't looked at it probably within the last year or so, but from what I know about my addictions works, 12-step programs, there's some different programs like evidence-based programs that help more often than not, and one of the common factors is something faith-based. So having like 12-step is a faith-based program, even though it can be belief in a higher power.
It's a spiritual program, not a religious program.
Yeah, you don't have to name that power. It can be open. It could be indigenous based. It could be Catholic based. It could be Muslim based. But any sort of faith based program, the numbers of people reaching recovery are higher. And so, we're faced with a downtown, like to keep it hyperly local, a downtown where people are obviously struggling, but we're also seeing churches close left, right, and center.
Yeah.
And so the role, I think, in society and where people are wanting and needing to access help are also disappearing in a way, in a generational way that we haven't seen. Also, people are less connected to their community. They're more isolated. And so now we're putting things in a government issue like, hey, this is your issue. Where in the past, it's really rested in a different place. And so, is it a crisis of faith, really, that is also a symptom of what we're seeing?
I think so.
What we're seeing people going through? So
I would call any type of drug, including alcohol, a lower form of God.
that you worship.
It is a lower form of God, and that we seek escape. You can escape in God, and you can escape into a drug. You have to make that choice. It's easy to say; it's tough to do. I'll be the first to admit. But the more that you can dive into something positive, like a faith, like a power greater than yourself, the better the chance that you stand. But anytime I'm seeking something from the outside world to solve something that's wrong with me on the inside, that's choosing a lower form of God. And yeah, a lot of those churches downtown are closing. At the same time, though, as someone who attends St. Mary's Church downtown Kitchener, we're seeing revitalization there. And it stems from this desire for community, this desire for something greater than just a service on a Sunday, but to actually serve the community. Faith in action. Faith without works is dead, as St. James says. And this is faith in action, where we're serving the community on a daily basis. There's meals that are going out. They thought they were going to do about 500 meals a month. They're doing 10,000 meals a month out of there, feeding our community.
I walk by all the time. This is between City Hall and my house. So, even tiny home takeout, like I will wait in line and bring home dinner sometimes.
It's
for the
delicious
kids.
too,
It's
by the way.
awesome. Yeah.
If anybody hasn't been to tiny home takeout yet,
great.
you're missing some of the best food in the city.
Yeah, absolutely you are. Christmas cookies, all of it. So good.
And that church was struggling. That's the oldest Catholic church in Kitchener.
It's beautiful.
Not the oldest in Waterloo Region. The oldest in Waterloo Region is actually in St. Clement.
Oh, really?
That's
What church?
St. Clement's, I forget the name of it, but
I don't-
that guy behind you right there, there's Father Funken. He's the first priest in the Waterloo Region.
Funkin'. What a name.
Yeah.
I like it.
Ludvigo Funken. He was the first priest who came here and went to St. Clement. Later on, they opened up St. Mary's downtown. There was a church and an orphanage that were originally built in St. Clement's. But that church was built. It was the biggest church in the whole city. It was always packed. But it was at a point where it was becoming into a state of disrepair, and attendance was falling and falling. There's nowhere to park. It's harder to get to. There's 11 other churches in Kitchener to choose from if you're Catholic. But through the power of faith in action,
There was also some
there's a groundswell movement.
groundswell movement, and you had Father Toby come in.
That's part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that church is doing great work downtown and being a huge resource.
And it's a place where the community comes together.
Absolutely.
And the more that we can see of that, I don't care what faith,
Same.
the more that you can come together, the better.
Even having faith and no faith is
The Unitarians are out on, that's,
yeah, I mean, it's to me it's not, I don't want to, it's not like a turn or burn, Councilor stretches here and trying to make everyone turn to God. No, it's really about hope. Honestly, it's about hope. And so wherever you can find that, and I'm just saying that the numbers, especially with addiction use, you see better. People recover more when they're attached to a program that involves some level of faith, and that brings me hope. And I want to keep offering hope to our community. And so anything that works, whatever your jam is, let's figure out how to make that work for you.
You do it at the council level. I'll do it on the ground level. And we'll keep working at this one step at a time.
Yeah, we got to keep working together and keep encouraging each other. But yeah, trying to figure out how to stay in our lanes to support each other.
I think I've kept you forever here by the looks of it. I hope, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you really wanted to say and tell the people? I want to make sure you got everything off your chest here before you leave.
Oh, right now, I don't have anything on my chest. No, I feel good about it.
Well,
I mean, I'm sure I'll think later, like, oh, why did I say that? Or I should have said this.
Can be just one of many. We don't have to do this just once. But thank you so much for coming and being part of this today.
Thanks.
I've had such an enjoyable 2 hours.
It's been 2
Thank
hours.
you.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah, it's been a couple hours. I've really enjoyed every minute of this. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And I wish you unbridled success in the next couple of years.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. I really hope to run again in 2026, as like right now. And so, yeah, can use the luck. Thank you.
Vote Stretch 2026. You heard it here.
Thanks.